Before I begin, I would like to thank you for taking the time to help out with this research. The intention of my dissertation is to evaluate the Green Deal scheme from a panoramic perspective. To do that, I introduce a new conceptual framework that I call GIC model, which stands for Government, Industry, and Consumer Society. The purpose of this video is to present this framework to you. I trust that demonstrating how this model could be applied to a different policy is a good way to quickly familiarize yourself with the reasoning behind the framework. The 1987 Montreal Protocol led to a framework aimed at a drastic reduction of CFC's production and consumption by 1994 and a complete phase-out by 1996. The model identifies three major sectors that participate in the successful implementation and performance of the Montreal Protocol, meaning industry, government, and consumer society. Each of these sectors interacts with the other two and creates favorable conditions which facilitate the implementation of the policy. For example, as a result of health concerns, the consumer society is pressuring both their local governments and the various relevant industries to respond to the demands of the Montreal Protocol. Simultaneously, the industry is facing growing regulatory and consumer pressures to stop using CFCs. This trend is facilitated by the existence of technologically and economically available alternatives to CFCs. Lastly, governments around the world expedite the transitions to CFC-free industries in response to grim scientific studies, strong public support for action, and international agreements. As a result of all these pressures, the favorable context and conditions created by each sector are expanding. So thanks to the successful convergence of favorable contexts and conditions for a CFC's phase-out, in 1996 the GIC conceptual model will look like this. The assumption that this model relies on is that a policy can only become successful when all relevant sectors create appropriate conditions for it to work. Due to the strong support of all involved sectors, the Montreal Protocol was quickly implemented and became a poster child for successful international cooperation. For the sake of argument now, and to better illustrate the model, let's assume that there were no commercially available alternatives to CFCs. Then we could safely claim that the area of favorable conditions provided by the industry sector could expand at a much slower rate and will provide a much smaller area of appropriate conditions. So I would like to apply this conceptual model to the Green Deal policy, assess the current favorable conditions that each sector creates, and identify pressures that steer the future performance of the scheme. Again, the assumptions are first, that the area representing favorable conditions represents an aggregation of many relevant to the policy factors, and second, the policy will only be successful when all these favorable contexts converge. Furthermore, the model is consistent with the assertion that one or even two sectors are not enough to establish, develop, and maintain a successful policy such as the Green Deal. Rather, a considerable degree of effort is required from all sectors to achieve the goals of the Green Deal scheme. Now that you have a good idea of the reasoning behind the proposed conceptual framework, I would like to ask you to help me apply this model in respect to the Green Deal. At this moment, you should have printed the pages of the PDF file that was attached to the email containing the link to this video. The page labeled as A provides a short overview of the interview procedure, and pages labeled D, E, and F will be used to create the model. If you do not have pages D, E, and F, please pause this video and print the PDF file that was sent to you. The remainder of this video will contain short instructions of how to complete the conceptual model, as well as prompts when to pause the video to give you time to execute the necessary steps. Now please place the page labeled as D over the page labeled as E. Let's assume that the outlying ring visible from the bottom sheet represents the initial position of each sector at the moment the Green Deal first emerged. The central bullseye point represents the point at which the Green Deal is considered a full success. Please allocate a point on each of the three axes, identifying the progress and effort that the respective sector has done to achieve full success. Please pause the video to complete this step. As a result of this exercise, we have 3 points that will outline the GIC model presented earlier. Please connect these points to form a triangle. Complying with the reasoning behind the GIC model, please outline the favorable conditions that each sector is currently creating in regards to the Green Deal. Again, a wider area will be representative to better conditions that are created by the sector. Please pause the video to complete this step. I am certain that while completing the last step, you consciously or subconsciously identified a number of factors and drivers that, when aggregated, define the favorable conditions that were outlined by you. Please identify some major such factors and write them on a sheet labeled as F. As per the example on the first row, please circle the current degree to which this particular factor benefits the Green Deal, as well as the expected rate and direction of possible change. You'll have the chance to interpret your choices during the phone interview, so feel free not to provide very detailed descriptions of the parameters that you identify at this step. Please pause the video to complete this step. I'd like to thank you again for volunteering your time for this research. I would like to ask you to send the sheets labeled as D and F, either as scanned attachments or as hard copies to the email and physical addresses provided on the first page of the interview package labeled as A. Thank you again for your time. I'm looking forward to talking with you in the follow-up phone interview when you have the chance to express your opinion on the Green Deal. Have a nice day.